Back to the Nutrimedical report, Ryan. Once in a while, you find sometimes when you identify the reason for mistakes, you make new discoveries of things that you never expected. One of the things that I had a recent discussion with my amazing biological dentist, Dr. Jeffrey Curbs, was he said, "Well, I'm taking zinc supplements, but whenever I measure my minerals, there shows high iron levels." I said, "Well, when you take zinc, you knock out copper, so you need the copper-zinc ratio, which is why we have it in our Minerals Plus." I add, of course, additional copper. People show copper deficiency in their QRMA, which is the best way to measure your total body levels, even better than a packed red cell. And we add the copper Genemax, but people should realize if you don't have the right ratio of minerals in your body, you can actually create deficiency states. And when you take minerals from any other company, whether it's, what's that company's name? Longevity, that's it, or GNC or whatever, you're taking minerals that are basically not in the balanced form your body needs. And it may be in an ionic form, so it's not going to be a protein amino acid chelate like the track systems we have. So you're going to create imbalances, and those imbalances are going to shut down different enzyme pathways. For example, we found that in diabetics and people with hypertension, the primary reason why they have no nitric oxide is because they've shut off their superoxide dismutase because they're effectively copper deficient. Interesting, hey? And they actually did some studies on animals. I just reviewed the literature this weekend where they made a streptozotocin-induced Wistar rat and actually were able to reverse the copper deficiency caused by the diabetes binding copper by using tetraethylamine to actually pull out the copper. And of course, then when you give copper to replace it, their SOD goes up and their heart failure disappears. Isn't that interesting? So heart failure is a copper deficiency syndrome. And hypertension and microcirculatory failure, including nitric oxide, you need supernox, but you also need to have the minerals like Minerals Plus. So I'm telling people when you have heart failure or if you're looking to correct your blood pressure, you need Vitamin Max, Minerals Plus, BioLVR, which is going to support tetrahydrobiopterin, and you need to make sure you have adequate levels of copper or you're not going to have the SOD, so your arteries will shut down production of nitric oxide because otherwise it turns into peroxynitrate. Interesting, hey? And I've got this literature now published in the last year to prove it. Interesting, hey?
Yeah. I mean...
So I'm always reading all the time. Abstracts, put them up, PubMed, pulling up GreenMed info, other sources of really good newsletters I get, and then putting it all together. And when people miss this, like, well, yeah. And if you have an analog of a heavy metal like mercury, it acts as a zinc analog. It knocks out your copper. So if you had mercury amalgams in your body, even especially after you've just removed them, you're going to start dumping and you're going to knock out your copper. So if you're not taking Minerals Plus, you're going to get very screwed up because as your copper gets knocked out, it's a cofactor for collagen synthesis, elastin, and superoxide dismutase, which protects you against singlet oxygen. Pretty neat, hey?
Yeah.
So we have some pretty amazing nutraceuticals here at Nutrimedical, and the application of them, again, I call the artful application of our NutriMeds is what I call without parallel. I mean, I hear a lot of people that try to compete, and it's almost laughable. We have people that are, vitamin salesmen. They have no functional medicine training, whether they're an MD, DO, DC, or they have just a smattering. And then there's people that basically have nothing. They're basically in a vitamin store saying, hey, take this stuff, and they're look good, talk fast, but do they understand the whole complexity of the biochemistry or the balance? No. So, for example, our supplement drinks, and this is where I'd like to start people from, because they say, I don't like taking pills. I said, don't take pills. And they said, well, why? I thought you're selling pills. I said, yes. For people like me, they can swallow, 5, 10, 15 pills in one mouthful and take my Sports Energy Light drink and mix it. But if you don't like swallowing pills, you can make it as a smoothie. And I said, well, I had one of our cleaning ladies were here today, and one of them speaks really good English. And she said, wouldn't it taste bad when you make it for your daughter? I said, no. I use ageless life support glycemics and NutriComplete. And when I put some omega cod liver liquid in it, and when my daughter drinks her, quote, syrup is what she calls it, she's 22 with Down syndrome, I correct all 5 genes of her Down syndrome by using our supplements, our NutriMed supplements. And it tastes great. She says, I love my syrup, Daddy. Where's my syrup? And I have it in the fridge, so if she gets up later, it's there. So tell us about Ageless, Life Support, NutriComplete, Glycemics. I mean, you can't beat these drinks. I mean, no other company has anything even remote. We tried a year and a half ago to do a competitive thing to look at what other companies are doing, and their drinks are gross. They're gross.
There's the huge aspect of, is it tolerable? Do you want to drink it? Is it something that you enjoy consuming? I think for most people, when it comes to like supplement shakes and stuff like that, they're like, no, I typically do not enjoy these. And if they do, they have so much sugar in them, they're ridiculous, or they're just built with a bunch of junk or chemicals or sucralose. Something's off. And so what's really rare here is what you're getting with like ageless, glycemic meal, life support, the NutriComplete. What you're getting is great tasting shakes, really smooth. People love the mouthfeel, kids and adults. And at the same time, you're not getting overwhelmed with sugar content. Most of these run anywhere from virtually below 3 grams of sugar, simple sugar, organic, to 6 per serving. And a lot of these you're ranging on the protein content, life support, ageless, and glycemic meal anywhere from 21 to 26 grams of protein per serving. And so it's remarkable. And so a lot of stuff that people buy and spend a lot of money on is not that great for them. It's not built with science in mind. And then for those that have suffered through some of the worst tasting, shakes out there, they want to cringe. These are far and away the best tasting shakes you've ever had.
Yeah, they really are amazing. Now I tell people, I say, look, when I do a protocol, it's a senior citizen or people who just don't want to swallow pills. I said, look, you can puncture the soft gels. You can open the capsules, just twist them and open them. And you can get a hand mixer like a KitchenAid. Hand mixer is the best one. It's a little steel one. And it's basically indestructible. And they give you a little cup. You pour in, I usually recommend people pour in about 150 mils, which is give you about 5 ounces, roughly, of fluid from your blender, of your big, I call them ninja blenders because I use coconut almond milk and water and ice, plus all of these other components I mentioned. And then when I want to open the capsules, I just open them up and puncture the soft gels, and away you go. And it tastes great. I mean, people say, well, it should taste bad. I said, no. If there was any flavor, that might, in some of the capsules, it might be bothersome, but there isn't. They're actually pretty good. And even our ultra-thiamine B1, we used to have a product called allothiamine, which is a sulfur-based thiamine, which is very effective, but it tastes like too strong, okay? But our ultra-thiamine B1 is more powerful. It's a special form of thiamine, has the same biological effect, but it doesn't have a bad flavor. So when you open all these capsules up and put it in, it tastes great. So we have senior citizens that can't even take it. For example, we have one gentleman, his wife is on a feeding tube. She gets her NutriMeds in a feeding tube after it's been blended. So she gets all her nutrients, she gets all of her protein, all her enzymes, digestive enzymes, because remember, we have digestive enzymes in these products as well. I think which one? I think it's Ageless has the digestive enzymes, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't realize a lot of people that are under stress, whether it's chemotherapy or radiation or elderly.
Dr. Bill, all 3 of those formulations, Ageless, Life Support, and Glycemic Meal, contain a patented form of digestive enzymes that are specifically designed for the higher absorption of the amino acids within the formulation. And so it's for better assimilation and utilization of the amino acids that people are taking.
Yeah, that's amazing. And of course, I'm going to explain the technology. When your body gets out of balance, the first thing that happens is what's called a bioplasmatic body gets out of balance, which is why the best technology for measuring if it's out of balance is not a blood, urine, or stool test. It's the QRMA machine that we have. And then if you want to really get fancy, we get the Bioplasm Expert machine, which we have the latest upgrades now available. But the QRMA is my favorite because you can do a test and repeat the test in 1 minute, once a week, once a day, once a month, and send me the compressed file along with your history, and I'll tell you exactly what supplement changes you need to make, because it'll change over a month or two. And as you heal, as you detox, as you regenerate, as you raise your energy level of your tissues, imbalances are going to start popping out because you've raised the energy level of the tissues high enough to show the imbalances present. I want to go back to some of the basic principles. Philippe Herrera, who called in, was actually a doctor in training in Chile, actually offered me to set up a training institute in Santiago, Chile, for all the doctors there, because the government are very pro-natural medicine there, and completely opposite of America, where the drug companies and the big medical system here doesn't want to advance what I call science-based. We're not talking about, woo-woo, but science-based functional medicine. And for example, I mentioned that sometimes we have to raise the redox potential of people with infrared sauna, hyperbaric oxygen, and the simplest is just high-dose power C+, and the things that support your mitochondria, such as anti-H, Max, Nutrigella, and Supernox, stimulating PGC1 alpha. And as soon as your mitochondria produce a higher energy state, all the imbalances, toxins, and things that are screwed up start to show up on your QRMA, because the bioplasmatic body is out of balance long before you have either physical, microscopic, or blood pathology. And people should understand that when this happens, it'll tell you in the direction you're going. So if you look at other things like homocysteine levels, for example, a byproduct of abnormal methylation, which will burn your brain and your arteries. And again, we can counteract that with things like LVR, samethyl, superfolate, and powermethyl B12. And people should understand that when their doctors are prescribing drugs, for example, to lower nasty drugs like Xarelto, Eliquis, and so on, and I tell people, never take these darn drugs. It's another never group, like don't take calcium channel blockers, ever. Don't take HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors, ever. And even drugs like Benicar, which is now big lawsuits over causing diarrhea, and we tell people, even if you're getting supplements, don't get supplements with tons of what's called sugar alcohols. It's going to wreck your bowels. Like artificial ice cream like Clemmies. If you eat Clemmies, even if it's on some diets, like George Cruzy says, you can have a little bit now and then, your bowels are not going to like you. That's why if you buy our supplements, they're sweetened naturally, or things that are not going to wreck your bowel, even if they say they're natural. So, buyer beware. You won't have the discernment or the scientific knowledge to know what's good or bad, and these are 7-star nutraceuticals. So, Ryan, we can actually tell people their bioplasmatic body's out of balance. We can tell them biochemically or with functional medicine tests or imaging and so on what's actually wrong far deeper than their primary care or specialist doctor, and we can fix the problem before they even have pathology, signs, or symptoms. That's what's amazing about Nutrimeds, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Now, let's go through some of the things that I think are real prominent. We have Allergon. We call it histamine eliminator in its description now, rather than changing the name, because people get used to the name Allergon. It's not an antihistamine. We have our natural antihistamine, Allerblock. But Allergon's used not only for allergies, but also for reducing histamine that will affect your brain, histamines and other cytokines that will affect autoimmune diseases or even occur in cancer. A lot of people don't realize some of the non-metastatic manifestations of cancer are weird cytokines being produced by your body.
Yeah, I mean, this is really a critical distinguishing thing when you talk about these formulations, and you talk about something like the Allergon and what it does for histamine regulation as a whole. And so we know this is an enzyme that's working vastly different than just using herbals that are meant to help stop histamine reaction. This is so different because it's actually a critical enzyme that your body is producing, known as diamine oxidase. And without that enzyme, you can't regulate histamine very well from the sources like we're coming in from your foods, what exists in our bodies. It's just a normal thing, just like saying you need an enzyme to break down protein. Well, you have a similar set of enzymes that are responsible for making sure that histamine is broken down properly so it doesn't overwhelm. If it does overwhelm, it is not simply just an allergy like runny nose, watery eyes type of response. As you just alluded to, it's insidious in the way that it works on our cardiovascular system. There's things that people never even think about, like arrhythmia, that histamine links to that, or vertigo, or hyperactivity type issues, arousal states, immune dysfunction,
night sweats,
as we know, overproduction,
diaphragmatic attacks,
goes on and on.
Right.
And so there's a lot of people out there that don't actually know why they have the challenges they have. And what's interesting is, if not addressed, this enzyme is not addressed, they will continue to be basically a yellow canary in the coal mine in the environment in which they live.
Right, and it's everything. For example, when we have people that have hot flashes, we tell them to take a flash away, or we call it hormone synergy. We use either name, and the use of Allergon or histamine eliminator. We also recommend high-dose Power C and full vitamin K2 to raise their redox, so it blunts their cytokine release. And NutriDefense, which is the most powerful antioxidant in the world, the polyphenol and the binder of free iron, as well as the other effects that it does on the cells. So that's kind of neat. The other one that I'm really pleased with is our energetic formulas. We have our ALC 1000 and D-ribose. We add to the Sports Energy Light Brain Mag Calm Mind, and the Mega Muscles. And we're getting some really good results. And we're not talking about just young guys who want to get nice muscles and look, six-pack and nice shoulders. We're talking about young women wanting to get firmed up. We're talking about elderly people not wanting to lose body mass, because if you lose body mass, the first thing that happens if you lose beyond a certain point is your immune system crashes. So when you get a senior citizen, let's say they're sick with a chronic illness or cancer, and then maybe they are taking the new form of medical marijuana without THC that will stop their nausea, and their pain goes from a 10 down to a 2. The most important thing to maintain their immune system, to protect their body from infections like pneumonia, is just maintain body mass. So giving Mega Muscles to anybody, rebuilding any solid organ, not just muscles, and rebuilding bone. Your bone requires a certain amount of metabolism to create collagen, which is 42% of the dry weight. So when you're trying to reverse osteoporosis, Mega Muscles is also part of the formula to keep the collagen part of your bones, along with Collagen Max, Mountain Red Velvet, Joint Performance and Tendon Mender, to maintain your protein portion of your bone mass optimal. And these are neat formulas, aren't they?
Revolutionary is what they are.
Yeah. Well, Ryan,
when I listen to you, Dr. Bill, it just fires me up, because it's exciting to know that people don't necessarily have to just stay a victim or just stay helpless or something like that. There's lots of things they can do that most likely they've never even tried.
My dentist the other day was very distressed. Dr. Jeffrey Curbs, about his mom getting osteoporosis, and she has osteoporosis, and she also has a very painful hip. And the first thing I tell people, and listen up out there, ask your doctor to get you to an invasive radiologist, physiatrist, or orthopedic surgeon that can do a Highland 3 million molecular weight polymer injection. It's a medical procedure. It's very simple. It's done under a C-arm so they can know where to put the needle. If it's your hip joint, if it's a knee joint, you need a C-arm. You can put it in the office. And you inject the hip joint. Then you start taking our Joint Performance, Tendon Mender, Collagen Max, Mountain Red Velvet. Start doing therapy with lumen photon and micropulse directly over there to stop the neuritic pain. And the Highland will buy you time because you have a hydroviscous layer. Take our bone generator, MyCell D3, Myco D2, full vitamin K2, and you're rebuilding the bone because you now have Collagen Max, and of course you're getting your Pro Collagen with Her Majesty's Royal Jelly generates Pro Collagen. And then the cofactors, you need Minerals Plus, zinc, copper, and additional copper with Copper Max. And guess what? You're going to rebuild your bones. And then what we also say, exercise with VibraSlim. So I'm going to send this full protocol to Jeffrey regarding his mom. She doesn't need a hip replacement. She needs to have a Nutrimed miracle program to heal her hip. So Ryan, the pathway to wellness is you've got to correct your mineral deficiencies, your enzyme deficiencies, your toxic load of heavy metals. That's why we have things like Keeler Max. When I talked to my dentist, I was saying, you guys in biological dentistry, and by the way, only 16% of dentists are removing what apparently is 1,000 tons of mercury walking around in Americans' heads right now. And only 16% are doing it safely with, vacuums and air filters and the masks and so on, and the bibs and everything, and the oxygen supplies and the vinyl dams around the person's mouth so they don't breathe a giant mercury vapor and then retoxify themselves as they pull out these amalgams, these nuggets I call them. What people should realize is I said, well, you need to challenge yourself with your Keeler Max for a week before you go for the blood tests. Either a QRMA or a PAC red cell test, say, is one of the best. PAC red cells through Genova Metametrics lab. I like the QRMA because it picks up total body burden better than just PAC red cells. So when we're detoxing, people should realize you've got to support the body's methylation pathway. So bio-LVR, Semethyl, superfolate, pyromethyl B12, and then, of course, you want to have Keeler Max. And I tell people you need to challenge yourself for a period of time. Some people even need infrared sauna or magnetic field therapy to even dump it from their deep bone marrow and other compartments because it's so darn toxic, some of these metals like strontium, cesium, and mercury, that the body's going to sequester it away so it won't kill you or give you cancer. So let's talk about this for a minute, Ryan. The Keeler Max and bio-LVR methylation pathway support with Semethyl. A lot of people think, well, I don't need Semethyl. Yeah, you do, actually. If you got depression, first thing I tell people if they're depressed is to take our bio-LVR. It's amazing. Just giving them that within 3 or 4 days, they say, my gosh, my depression just lifted. Took that little Calm Mind, and all of a sudden they say, I'm sleeping better with the calm mind, and my mood is now more positive since I've been taking BioLVR. How's that, Deagle? Your mood is dependent on neurotransmitters in your brain and the firing pattern of the limbic system of your brain, we call non-motor seizures. And as soon as you correct the biochemistry, the problem goes away. You don't have a deficiency of Kilujaq or Prozac or Celexa or some other toxic fluoridated salt drug that some moron, evil bastard, excuse my English, in the pharmaceutical companies decide to farm F-A-R-M-U in your brain by these toxic drugs and teach your knucklehead doctors to top you up with these drugs or your senior citizens so they become functional biochemical psychotic zombies. And people should realize all you need to do is correct the biochemistry and a person's mood lifts and say, hey, I see a beautiful sunset and sunrise. I don't feel pain anymore. I don't need to take all these things for fibromyalgia. How come that is, Deagle? Because we're fixing the problem. So what's in BioLVR, Semethyl? What's in Keeler Max that'll help people detox and also restore their neurotransmitters?
Yeah, well, when you look at something like the methylation cycle, there's a lot of dysfunction to that for people, and it's becoming more and more understood. But I do want to point people back to something very fundamental, Dr. Bill, is using Vitamin Mineral Max as the foundation always.
Oh, yeah, I always have Vitamin Mineral Max and Minerals Plus.
Yeah, and then moving on to like BioLVR, which is going to be more intensified versions of your B2, B6, B12, fourth generation folic acid, trimethylglycine, all basically, if you will, to be very specific in greasing the wheels for methylation to occur. And I liken it back, the best example I can give is the cylinders on a car. You want them all firing in order for the engine to work the way it should. In a lot of cases, it's misfiring. Now, for certain people that have moved into conditions that are pretty chronic, and you mentioned some of them, things like depression or maybe it's chronic pain, osteoarthritis type issues. There's many issues where directly adding a methyl donor, like when you talk about Sam-methyl, could be really profound and also work very quickly for them to help alleviate some of these challenges and to start getting the body back on track. So with something like Sam-methyl, some people will recognize the ingredient as SAMe or S-adenomethionine. Now, SAMe is available widely all over the place, but you want to be cautious because a lot of times what you're getting is SAMe that doesn't have much active isomer in it. You may be paying a high price for it, but that doesn't mean anything. What this is a very cost-effective formulation. It's actually a powder. You can just open up your mouth, drop it along the lining of your gum, and let it sit for a couple minutes and maximize the benefits that way. And this, we know active isomer is more than twice as high as what's considered pharmaceutical-based SAMe, and so we can get a lot of material into the body and create that profound effect you're looking for. And so Sam-methyl is by far the most unique one in the market space.
Yeah, the two things that we would use even in the emergency department years ago that anybody that's what we call an emergency department person that's trained in the military to detox, intravenous vitamin C and Semethyl. Now, we don't need intravenous because our Power C Plus, we can get higher doses than you can get even intravenously. And I call it liquid electrons, like Linus Pauling. And then when we add Semethyl, if you've got toxins in your body, you do three things: Power C Plus, Sam-methyl, and NutriDefense, which is polyphenol. That's right off the bat. Then you add Xenoestrogen Detox to pull those xenotoxins, Nutridyne to flush the biotoxins and halides out of your body. It's just amazing what the body does. Now, let's move up to the next issue, chronic infections like bladder irritability. We have bladder up and Swedish flower pollen to restore normal motor activity. Then we're dealing with infections. We've got Allicin Med, and we have the German-based standardized Allicin, which is 200 milligrams more Allicin than even our Alamed, which we still sell because people are liked it and it's used to it, and it's been available in the market for 25 years now under Peter Jostling, who developed it in Britain as a chemist there. That's what they call pharmacists there, or researchers. And the German-based system is not only half the cost, but it gives you more. And I tell people, general hygiene would be take Allicin Med every day. If you don't want bladder infections or prostate infections, a lot of men, for example, they go to their doctor and their PSA is shooting up like a rocket. They don't have cancer. They got some form of prostatism, whether it's Trichomonas vaginalis, ureaplasma ureolyticum, E. coli, whatever. They've got some form of epididymitis or prostatism. And, in fact, it's chronic viral infections and heavy metals in the prostate that cause prostate cancer. So if you're taking Xenoestrin Detox, NutriDefense, Vision Max, by the way, which we use for prostate and vision, and prostate flow, because, by the way, you can't have sex unless your prostate's healthy. I recommend at least 1 to 2 of the prostate flow soft gels twice a day. If you are a male in your 50s, 60s, and 70s and will still want to have sex, this is the solution. If you don't have a healthy prostate, you're not going to have sex. It's not going to happen. You're not going to have normal prostatic action. And so detox is really important. And, we have solutions that actually fix things. Like, it's funny, the same things that will have to protect your eye if you've got diabetic retinopathy protect your prostate. So we didn't call it Vision Max, Prostate Max, because people would say, well, if I'm a female, why would I take that? Well, believe it or not, it's the same components in the Vision Max that'll protect your prostate from cancer. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty wild the way that it works, the similarities in the body,
I think God has a
like
bit of a sense
to be
of humor.
Different, but you're like, no, actually quite similar to protect in so many different areas.
I think God has a sense of humor, and he figured we're going to eventually discover all this stuff and say, God, you are God, aren't you? You did this as a joke to kind of, if you don't take care of your eyes, you're not going to have any activity down there either. So, interesting.
Yeah, he's gonna. Yeah, exactly. He's gonna basically take things that we might see as foolish or not scientific enough and go, that actually was it.
Right. Another thing is we see
is you need to make it appear. I gave you the
food, I gave
you the medicine. It's all right there. You just try using that.
Ryan, let's talk about dementia and pre-dementia. A lot of people don't realize, they don't know they're getting dementia or pre-dementia until they're allowed the last few good clues. We have Cognition Plus and Brain Power and Brain Mag that actually protects against S100 protein aggregates and brain inflammation. We have nutraceutical things to stop free radical changes in the brain like cell detox, glutathione, Nutrichala, Regenerex, and carnosine to stop diabetic singlet oxygen. Cognition Plus, Brain Power, and the Brain Mag. If you're taking these daily, you have bulletproofed, you have your brain from oxidative stress and pre-dementia or dementia. And don't wait until you're down to your last few good clues, because you won't know you're missing your keys until your last few good neurons are just firing. When we come back, we'll talk about keeping your brain working.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else
having fun yet?
Working harder than ever?
We call the genesis of different illnesses. As early as the 1940s and 50s, they discovered that Mycoplasma incognita, which is difficult to culture and grow, was actually present in the joint spaces of rheumatoid arthritic patients. I did research under Dr. John Woodbury back in medical school for 3.5 years, and reviewed 26,000 cases which are on the database, plus working in the Synovial Analysis Immunology Lab. And that was my first kind of brush with immunology, and realized, in fact, he realized how smart I was. He tried to blackmail me into even becoming his resident by even aiming his daughter at me to see if he could get her to chase me enough to marry me so I become his resident and find the cause for his own ankylosing spondylitis. Well, I can tell you, I know what the cause of arthritis is, and it's stealth pathogens. It's the presence of things like diabetes and pre-diabetic. For example, when somebody gets osteoarthritis, it's an epiphenomena of Syndrome X. There is not a person with osteoarthritis that doesn't have elevated insulin resistance, elevated glucagon levels, decreased leptin and insulin receptors, and dry joints caused by the downregulation of hyaluronic acid polymer synthesis and glycosaminoglycans for their joints. And that's why nutraceuticals like that lower insulin resistance, like diabetoline, Biotin Plus, leptin metabolic, Vitamineral Max and Minerals Plus, and chromium cruciferate. And of course, because diabetics all have extreme copper deficiency, besides the Minerals Plus, they need copper Regenemax. All diabetics are relatively even more copper deficient, which is bound and proven by this study, which I'll probably post up, the actual PubMed study. So you need to take these nutraceuticals. So when people say, I got osteoarthritis, my doctor wants to do a joint replacement, you have been a pre-diabetic for decades, but your dumb doctor is not going to measure your fasting blood insulin to say instead of 2 milliunits per ml, it's 8 or 12. And the problem is that elevated blood insulin is tied directly to your dry joints that are now so screwed up you get eburnation of bone on bone. But will the orthopedic surgeon accede to this fact? They probably don't have the faintest clue. which is why I say they're so stupid they can't get out of their own way. But they do want to cut. And you need to understand, if you start taking our nutraceuticals, you can counteract it. Put Highland in it, start taking things for the diabetes, like taking our carbo block and our lactose blocker, which is still on specials. People think, well, lactose is no big deal. It's almost in everything. And if you're eating lactose and not breaking it down, it breaks down to glucose and galactose in your gut bacteria. And when you screw up your gut, you make your body more insulin resistant. So gut dysbiosis is not a minor thing. And blunting your carbohydrate surge of sugars with carbo block directly reduces the insulin surges that dry out your joints and cause all the diabetic changes to the superoxide dismutase in your artery walls. So you got to blunt those sugar surges with carbo block and lactose blocker, and decrease the insulin resistance with chromium, vanadium, and zinc copper in the proper ratio with extra copper with the copper Regenemax. And if you do these things and you take our leptin metabolic and are things to regenerate the joint, like joint performance, tendon bender, or collagen max, guess what? You can hear the whizzing sound of the surgeon and their knife passing you, but not stopping and operating on your knee. Brian, so let's talk about this. Most people don't realize osteoarthritis is basically syndrome X or prediabetes, do they?
No, I don't think they.
Do you think the average doctor knows this? Yeah. Do you think the average doctor knows that stealth pathogens, for example, like Mycoplasma incognita, causes rheumatoid arthritis because of homology between the antigenic stimuli of the Mycoplasma antigenic surface and the type 2 collagen of the rheumatoid joint, causing rheumatoid nodule formation? Do you think the average rheumatologist even knows this? Of course not. They know about Ridor, gold salts, and toxic drugs like infliximab, medezolimab, etc., that will give you cancer or cause your immune system to fail to the point where you'll pick up pathogens from your pet that normally do not grow on human flesh but will when your immune system is screwed up. If people detect a little anger, it's because I am now old enough and persnickety enough and knowledgeable enough. I don't tolerate BS anymore from anybody, including even myself, which is why I don't have any intellectual attachment to even previous levels of stupidity. And, to me, I am fully allergic now and fully deal with it. Violence, the stupidity of my colleagues harming people by doing unnecessary surgery when they could avoid the knife, which 50,000 cases, this 10 years ago, per year, just for this Medicare, end up with serious complications and or death just from knee replacements. 12,000 deaths per year on average, 50,000 major complications from just the Medicare. Doesn't even include other insurance plans like Humana or Health One or whatever. Not nice, is it?
No, that's sad.
Well, I don't get sad, or I get pissed off. I get angry. I don't have the sad emotion. I think is just a waste of time. It's like spinning your tires. I turn sand into mad. I take the S off and put an M there.
Right.
The same thing with stopping cancer. Take cell defense. Take our ellagic acid. Take the malignant block. And take Ageless, which has the immunoglobulins to boost your immune system. Take NutriDefense to make your natural killer cells kill the cancer off and activate your granulocytes. So long before we resort to things like GCMAF, take our immunoglobulins like NutriImmune and NutriDefense and things to rev up your immune system. So, there's no excuse. Same with neuropathy. People say, how do you reverse neuropathy? Well, stop the free radicals, Nutritrala, cell detox glutathione, Regenerex, and carnosine. Provide the phospholipids, Nutrifos, Neurogen. Provide Vitamineral Max, Minerals Plus, and Copper Regenemax, because you cannot rebuild any solid organ without adequate levels of copper and zinc in the right ratio, and you need more copper for a person that's pre-diabetic or has heavy metals like mercury in their body because it knocks out copper. So, and if you stop the free radicals and provide the phospholipids and the proper cofactor minerals, and then you have the signal with lumen photon, micropulse, and mild hyperbaric oxygen, because every disease state is a low redox hypoxic condition. Every disease state, not just some. And so that's why I call it the power of one. And if you provide the right phospholipids and essential oils and fatty acids like omega cod liver liquid, you don't need an HMG CoRe reductase inhibitor. You need cod liver liquid. If you want to stop triglycerides, somebody said, I was eating a lot of fatty things, and how do you flush it? They were taking lecithin to get rid of the fats. I said, take Neovasc niacinamide, for special form, And make sure you're taking omega cod liver liquid if you're trying to lower triglycerides and cholesterol in your body to the normal range. Again, you don't try to force it down, because when you do, you knock off CoQ10. And I can't tell you how many stupid doctors are giving these people, and they've proven now in women that HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors cause and double the risk of people who are being treated for lipid problems of turning diabetic. That's now proven. Do you know that, Ryan? That HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors double the chances, or to triple it, of turning diabetic. Nasty, hey?
That's terrible.
And the doctors are getting away with it. Doctors are getting away with it, you know. And people say, no, Dr. Deagle said it's published. In fact, it's a lot of time black box warnings right in the PDR, because the lawyers say, well, you got to put this in the black box. But nobody's going to read the PDR. Not even the specialists. They don't read that stuff. They're just going to whip in another room with their glance over the top of their glasses to their patient, ask them what the next problem is. See you in 2 weeks. Take your damn medicine, otherwise I will disband you as a patient because you are not an obedient to the God of medicine. I mean, people say, no, they're not bullies. Yeah, that's all they are. They're medical bullies. It should be changed from MD to MB. How's that? People say, you have attitude. I say, I have a good reason for attitude. I want to save my brothers and sisters from the medical system and make them little Dr. U's, so they will be good health consumers. Firstly, minimizing the number of drugs. And drugs can be useful if you use a minimum amount, like a diuretic or an ACE receptor blocker. And if you're going to use a cardiac blocker, you got to use a very cardioselective one like Coreg at the lowest dosage. But most drugs, never take antidepressants, never take antipsychotics, never take calcium channel blockers, never take HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors. And a lot of the even diabetic drugs, they'll blow up your fat cell number, or they'll do other weird things, give you hepatitis. People say, oh no, they don't do that. I said, look, there are already lawsuits over it. I mean, MDs that also have a JD are suing like crazy and making boogles of money, just taking down drug companies, but they just call it the cost of business. Oh, we killed some people. Well, don't worry, our quarterly profits are still good. It sounds like I could make a new version of Charles Dickens, you know, and Charles Dickenish kind of, you know, Middle English. And it was the medical establishment now, just like one of my favorite mentors back in France, Voltaire, who wrote a play about the medical profession 240 years ago. So, believe it or not, as ugly as it is, there's an ugly truth, but there's an ugly, wonderful thing called Nutrimeds, and the Nutrimed way to live long and well. As Spock says, live long and well and prosper.
Prosper. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam. We now bless you with Nutrimeds to heal your body, mind, and soul, heal your finances, to disconnect from an evil system, and to take control yourself. Do not get supplements elsewhere. Get them from Nutrimeds. We will heal you. We'll provide 99% of the time phone and email consults and never charge a cent, except when you data dump me with a ton of records.